deals with America's obsession with race, with a specific emphasis on mixed race identity and interracial relationships. I'm Jen Chau.
And I'm Carmen van Kerckhove. And on today's show, we're talking about the misconceptions that people have about mixed identity. So Jen, what are some of the misconceptions that you think people have about mixed identity that you wish people just knew wasn't true?
One of the things that I think is the worst or the most frustrating is the idea that mixed people are the most beautiful. We've heard so many people say, oh, you're so lucky, I wish I was mixed. Mixed people are the most beautiful people in the world, or the whole idea that, mixed kids are the cutest. Mm-hmm. This really overshadows all of the other issues that we could be talking about, like, exploring issues of authenticity and legitimacy, the whole notion that identity is fluid. All of these things get kind of lost by the wayside because people are so focused on the physical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that one of the more unfortunate misconceptions about mixed identity is the idea that people who identify as mixed are doing it in order to distance themselves from their ethnic heritage or to deny even their ethnic heritage. I mean, how many times have we heard people say things like, oh, this mixed person is just running hard from their blackness, or this isn't mixed, just another way of saying not black. Mm-hmm. And like you said before, identity is fluid, and the reality is that many mixed people may identify as both mixed and black. Mm-hmm. I, for instance, identify as both mixed and Asian, or more specifically, mixed and Chinese, but to me, these are not mutually exclusive categories.
Right. Yeah, I wish people would understand that as well. So we decided to take a look at some of the people we know here in New York City, some mixed people, to see what they thought some of the worst misconceptions were about mixed identity. Here's what they had to say.
So the biggest misconception for me is that people say, oh, you're mixed. You've got the best of both worlds, which is true sometimes, but I think a lot of times it's not necessarily true, and that a lot of people with mixed race identity and identity issues can feel excluded from both of their communities instead of doubly included.
My issue with the misconceptions is not necessarily about being mixed, it's about the separate ethnicities. And what brought me to Swirl is that my father's family is Puerto Rican and my mother's family is Jewish. And I was raised super heavy-duty white down the middle, like with no real ethnicity or culture as like a background or as a way of, as any kind of experience growing up. So I experience all the time walking down the street and people try to speak to me in Spanish and I don't know Spanish. So it's really embarrassing, and I'll try to figure out what they're saying anyway out of a sense of obligation, and I don't, and my Spanish is terrible. And when people find out I'm Jewish, they expect me to know certain things about Judaism, which I don't know also. And so I sort of feel like I'm in this netherland of like not really fitting into any culture at all except the very, very white American culture, which feels comfortable to me. It doesn't bother me that I was raised eating grilled cheese sandwiches and Cheerios and not, empanadillas and, whatever. So for me, it's more about, again, the separate ethnicities and not really feeling like what shows in my face necessarily shows up in my background culturally. It's more, like my last name is Torres, but I don't even pronounce it right. So that's for me more what it is.
I think the biggest misconception I get is that that all mixed people must either be completely and utterly confused or fit into every kind of ethnic group there is because they can blend so well. That there's no in between, and that there's no conflict with those two things. And very often I think people just assume that either, oh, well, you seem so well adjusted and that's so great, and like I would be psycho or something because I'm mixed and it's so confusing. And on the other end, they would, be like, oh, but that must be so hard to deal with. And so it's always that dichotomy of it being like this really severe thing to deal with, and instead of something that I deal with the same way that I think other people who are maybe only one race deal with other identity issues.
We'll be back next week with our regular audio episode of Addicted to Race, and we hope that you'll join us then. Thanks for watching our very first ever Videocast episode, and we'd love to get your feedback. So please email us at addictedtorace@gmail.com or leave us a voicemail at 206-203-3983. We look forward to hearing your feedback.
Thanks for joining us on Addicted to Race.